If you want to support the show, you can go to mwpnews.com/support, where you can pick up my latest book, Succession Planning, and all my other books that have previously been released on Kindle for only $2.99 each. Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to the Backlog Files. I am Adam with a new episode here about a new game. I was going to do this next week, but the game was really short, so I played through it really quickly. And I'm already done with the game, so why sit on this any longer? Let's just put it out now. I'm talking about Princess Peach Showtime, which was revealed last year as part of one of the Nintendo Directs. We got another little preview of it earlier this year. We got a demo. I said in the preview of the demo a few weeks ago, I'm interested in the game. It feels short. And it feels especially short for a game running the full retail price that the game is releasing at. It's an interesting situation where I don't think that my opinion on that changed. I don't think that the game is... Because what I'm going to like in this too is... This feels like a tech demo where they're showing off what they can do in a new engine. This feels like this will be the new standard for Nintendo games going forward. This will be what we as players can come to expect on a weekly basis on a release basis when it comes to big ticket Nintendo titles. The issue is the game is very short, and in the past we've seen this with like Kingdom Hearts 0.2 Prologue, A Fragmentary Passage, which was the little game where you play as Aqua, and it kind of bridges the gap between Birth by Sleep and 3 for Aqua specifically, and you don't feel like you got conned because I don't want to say con, that's the wrong word. It doesn't feel short because it's part of a larger experience. You get the cinematics from Unchained Chi. You get the remaster or the first time on console release of or home console release of 3Ds. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, I can live with this because I'm getting something so much better out of it. The fundamental issue that I have with this game is that it does kind of that same thing in a very short experience. It just doesn't feel like you've gotten your money's worth out of it. And I think that if this game was offered for $30, I would be like, okay, this was a good and worthwhile thing. Like I wouldn't feel like I was shortchanged an experience because the game is fun, the game is enjoyable. It's just nagging at the back of your head is this idea that, like, this game cost $50 and I played through it in an afternoon. Or not an afternoon, I played through it throughout the day yesterday. I started around 10 a.m., I finished it by about 7. And that was with me getting up to do things and getting food and doing stuff like that. I didn't 100% the game, but I did beat it. And I don't think that I missed out on too much by not 100%ing it. This game is short, and that's the biggest issue that I have with it. The gameplay is fun, but if we're going to sit here and charge $60 for it, I want a bigger experience. I don't want to especially when other games that are at the same price from Nintendo are bigger experiences. Say what you will about Scarlet and Violet, but those games were $60 each, and you get a more full experience out of it. The game is longer, and it had plenty of problems, but it's a much longer game with a lot more to do. There isn't a ton to do in this game. There isn't a ton of replay value. Like, I don't see myself going back to this in the way I may go back to Super Mario Bros. Wonder, or I may go back to Super Mario 3D World port, or I will go back to Tears of the Kingdom. Like, this is... And Tears of the Kingdom was $10 more, but if you told me that game was, was like $30 more, I would be like, okay, that makes sense. And looking at what this game is, it's fun, and it's an interesting conceit. I need a more full experience out of it, though. I need more. Because that's the thing is, like, yeah, it's fun, and the first time you play through each of the levels, it's kind of fun. Then it gets repetitive. And even the differences in gameplay between what you're doing don't feel all that different. like the lassoing when you're playing as Cowboy Peach compared to the lassoing when you're playing as, or the electrical thing you're shooting out in front of you when you're playing as the Thief Peach. It's interesting, and it feels kind of the same. Like, you know, the sword fighting gimmick in the sword fighting levels have very little, have very little depth or anything to the combat, which, fine, okay. Like, if this is, like, Mario Party, then that's fine. But there isn't enough difference between the levels to make it where it's like, okay, these puzzles have differences that need to make me think. Like, arguably, most of, like, the thing that cost the most time was the detective level. Because you gotta sit there and figure stuff out. And there's only, like, 3 of those. Like, I'm not super into, like, what they did here. Like, I'm not gonna argue that the game isn't fun, but this is a game that, if you haven't played it already, wait for Black Friday when Nintendo inevitably marks it down to $35 or $40. That's a better way to buy it than paying full $60 for it. It's definitely worth the play, and you know, maybe when we get a Switch 2, maybe we get a second game of this, and maybe we get bigger and grander, because the game runs very well. Like, I had very few glitches. There were a few graphical glitches during, like, cutscenes, but that's negligible at the end of the day. I just don't think that this game is... I don't want this to become the new standard for what we expect from Nintendo at this price point. That's my concern, is that if this game ends up selling well, this becomes the new benchmark of, oh, we only need to put this much into the game for it to sell. And I don't think this is going to do Tears of the Kingdom numbers. I don't think it's going to do Pokemon numbers. I would be surprised if this does Pikmin 4 numbers. But it's just a very short experience. I think we'll wrap up there for today. I would say this is a wait for it to be on sale from me. This is not a pick up immediately, and that's purely because of the amount of content in the game. It's not a statement on most of the content within the game. It's a statement on how much is there, and how much variety is there within that content, and how much depth is there within that content, which there isn't a ton of. But we'll wrap up there for today. Later this week, we have Pokemon Emerald in our quest to rank all the Pokemon games, and we'll also be talking about the Dune Spice Wars expansion for real this week, and next week we'll be doing Stardew Valley 1.6. So until our next episode, have a great rest of your week.